We have been having discussions on power grids in various forms, particularly on the resilience of these grids to, growing, climate change. We discussed the type of solutions that exist to optimize grid infrastructure in the face of climate extremes. Is it possible for you to share some recommendations on the kind of investments that India can make today in its grid infrastructure, operating practices and regulation, so that we build long-term reliability and resilience to these climate impacts while also keeping power affordable? There is always a constraint. What best practices, tools and solutions are there in the global markets that Indian grid planners and operators can adopt?
Yeah, it's a great question. There is a very wide variety of experiences, and these stem from extreme event mitigation. So here, consider heat, in particular in India, and what it would be on transmission systems. Hurricanes, flooding, wildfires, and other natural disasters. And having a solid sense of the tails, if I can use the term, i.e. the probability of extreme event is incredibly important to build into the planning for resilient grid. This is literally focusing on the towers and water, not the operation side. Now, if I translate to operations, there are a number of emerging practices that involve utilizing best-in-class sensing data, AI for processing of extreme weather patterns and prediction, and allowing for generation of reliability. I think those pieces will be important to keep in mind as India builds out its grid. There are other pieces which are being implemented that are more challenging economically, such as burying line. This, for example, is being done in California to avoid wildfire risk. That likely is not the primary option in most of India. Additional examples run with corridor preparation and maintenance. So these are on the physical side. Let me stop there and see if you have other questions on this particular topic.
Thanks, Doug. So as Deepak spoke about mostly the grid side, actually, as you know, at ACE, we have also, one of the thematic tracks has been around demand and load transformation. And over the course of these yesterday and today, we have been talking a lot about different sources of demand, particularly on electrification of end users like transport, industrial process heat, and of course, the growing demand for space cooling in India. So given this context of electrification and integrating vast amounts of renewable energy, which is also the goal that India is working towards, what are your 3 recommendations on the integration of these different end users with the energy system? What are some big bets that India needs to place on technologies and innovations that will be critical for successfully achieving economy-wide low-carbon energy systems? So many sub-questions under that large question.
Yeah, let me give you three, I think, top of mind reflections. The first is to incorporate these technologies and potential innovations into planning models. The second is on the technologies and the innovations. So let me address air conditioning as an example. India is leading in super efficient air conditioning, but I see an enormous opportunity of hybridizing air conditioners with smart thermostats, batteries, and of course, building efficiency in order to be able to program the use of air conditioners to achieve the appropriate temperatures, but lessen their strain on the grid. Similarly, for transport, as one envisions a much deeper electrified transportation system, one of the most important lessons that has been learned over the last decade is that managed charging, along with consumer incentives for managed charging, can be extremely effective in having electric vehicles be complementary to available generation and, of course, be sufficiently charged to meet consumer demand. Similarly, on industrial loads, there are emerging practices where large industrial loads can be curtailed if needed. These are termed such as demand response or critical peak pricing, and have been built into the design of those facilities, as well as the economic regulation and remuneration. So the bet here is to map through those technology innovations, which one can envision part of a integrated, smart, well-managed grid in 15 or 20 years today. This includes standards, visibility, i.e. the ability of the grid operator or utility, if you want to say it, to have visibility to those demand and to be able to control them. Hope that makes sense.
It does. I mean, we do have follow-up questions, but Deepak.
Sure. So I think just looking at the time that we have, I'm going to try to be ambitious and push us to try that we fit in 2 more questions. So I think since systems approach has been a key focus, and the preceding session to this was on agri-PV. I just wanted to request for your thoughts on the energy, food, and water nexus. So you have looked at it in the context of Denver with its rapid growth, semi-arid topography, potential for a large water shortfall. While it's also being a major fossil fuel producer, I presume it's for the shale gas, or please correct me if I'm wrong on that. And it's also an agri powerhouse. You looked at the high volume hydraulic fracking and its impacts on water and associated aspects. So what lessons from that could be applied in the Indian context? Now over here, diesel use predominates in our agriculture pump sets, and a lot of groundwater extraction is done. And the major fear is that aquifers will run out, and there could be a dystopian scenario where rich folks are able to take over a common aquifer and sell water to the poorer farmers. So what kind of lessons do you feel could be adopted from a Denver context to India? Are there solutions that we could at least start to think of to avoid any potential catastrophe?
Yeah, thanks. It's a very complicated topic. There's a wonderful thing in the West of America, which perhaps translates well, which is whiskey is for drinking, water is for fighting. And this relates back hundreds of years of water rights that were allocated and are still being fought over. But to come to the core of the question, food, energy, water, it's really the energy, water element critical. Of course, food is a critical output of necessary ingredients there. And I think lessons from Denver, but also from broader Corpus Christi, Cape Town, South Africa, etc., is that appropriate water planning is absolutely critical to the survival of the population and to reduce the consumption and increase the recycling and reuse is incredibly important. Looking at the water cycle and its interface with energy implies that energy needs to be as water efficient as possible. So this implies then reducing water use in the energy sector as best as possible and improving the reuse. This is there are many studies that look at the life cycle assessment of water consumption by energy management technology. I would refer to those. Keep those in mind as the Global Energy Program in particular rolls out, but also as you consider increasing industrial productivity and, of course, the use of water thermal power generation, either from nuclear or from fossil generation itself.
Thanks, Doug.
Yes. So, Doug, in terms of the conversations that we have had over the last 2 days, the question around political economy is something which has not been explicitly talked about, but there have been pretty much in every discussion this whole sort of an undercurrent around the political economy of the clean energy transition. And you have done, extensive work on this topic. You have actually, even edited a volume with a book of articles looking at political economy in transition across many countries and different emerging economies. In one of the chapters, it calls out that political economy in some is a circle that exists wherein politics drives policy, policy drives technology, and the state of technology circles back to influence politics. Today, from the perspective of advancing clean energy technologies, this circle shows evidence of becoming virtuous as opposed to vicious. This was in 2017. So now we are, 9 years from that. What do you think is the shape now? Is it still circular and virtuous? Has it changed shape given all that the world is going through right now?
Yeah, it was a forceful comment, I think, at that point. And I think the circle is actually enhanced at a few levels in government. I think the circle has grown and intensified at the leadership level in many countries, including India. because the benefit, the cost, the economics of the clean energy technologies changed so dramatically and are a positive value proposition, that we say, for a country at the macroeconomic level, but also at the microeconomic level. I think where one needs to be mindful of the political economy is as you get further and further down local jurisdiction and local properly managing stakeholder engagement, inclusion, and what I call the social license to operate for development of projects, uptake of technology, still requires a conscious and mindful approach to dealing with stakeholder concerns and addressing those. We're seeing this already in the United States, very heightened sense for data center development, where there's now local pushback. This is very reminiscent of 15 years ago, natural gas fracking. It wanted to be too close to neighborhoods. So you can imagine how this will roll out in terms of dealing with the political economy, which is now being expressed as moratorium or local opposition to development, because local communities don't feel well enough heard in the process. So the takeaway is that the circle is not guaranteed, even though the value proposition is incredibly valuable, particularly for the generation side. I would say for large demand centers, it has to be very mindful, but also for project development, where there may be potential impacts on environment, community, water, et cetera. And so being thoughtful about that, managing and building in the time for the process would be my high recommendation here.
Thank you, Doug. That was really great, and I think the biggest takeaway is inclusion across all levels. No, not just leaders meeting at a summit or us meeting in this conference. And ultimately, the idea is to take the messaging of clean energy, make it more inclusive, and ideally everyone should benefit the moment. So just before we conclude, just wanted to ask if you have any other thoughts in your mind. We have covered only a snippet or a small segment of the energy transition grids. We have looked at food, energy, water nexus. We have looked at end use, political economy. Topics like finance, we have not been able to go into it. Neither have we been able to go into industrial decarbonization, the molecules. So anything on those, if you would like to add, your thoughts on what India could look at, we would be grateful for that.
Yeah, just very briefly, two pieces come to mind. One is to focus on the enabling environment to attract private sector finance, which is much larger than multilateral bank or public finance available. These are the policies, the regulations, the contract structures, the standards, et cetera. Create a stable, colleague used to call it transparent, long-lived, and compatible environment to attract private sector investors. They want to see risk-adjusted returns. They're confident in the technology and the ability to do that. That's one thing that I think is very important. Lean into the private sector because where there's good motive for development, there's also creativity and innovation. That's one piece that's very important. And that's all the way from I'll call it the wholesale side, supply chain, manufacturing, through project development, et cetera. I think it's also very, very important to look at that on the demand side. So there's very, very strong innovation in frankly, a deregulated or restructured electricity markets around the world. I would highlight one flagship company that's on the advisory board of the Polski Energy Center called Octopus in the UK. They've been incredibly creative in restructured electricity markets, offering AI-enabled, very smart platform-enabled consumer services. That's everything from air conditioning to electric vehicle charging to distributed PV to actually offering discounts on their power if they allow renewable generation to be in their community. So thinking of retail innovation as well, that can be very valuable as well, with all of those technologies, as we talked about before, being visible to the grid operator and being very positive and supporting of an operating, resilient, affordable, and sustainable grid. That's one side. I think the other side, very aligned with the hydrogen mission as it's been defined in the strategy for India, is to think very mindfully about power to X and industrial decarbonization. These were topics of interest and remain of interest. They require continued innovation and cost reductions, and scale is going to be very, very important there. And so I would, on that front, lean into the innovation ecosystem and the incredible talent that's throughout India to be able to support scale and technology breakthroughs in industrial decarb power to X technologies. I'm mindful of the time, so let me stop there.
Oh, thank you, Doug. This was extremely interesting, and I think we know we have a lot to talk about when we meet you in person. But thank you so much for your time. I think we touched upon quite a few layers and quite a few threads that we connected over the last 2 days on innovation, on political economy, on technologies, but also your recommendations around what are the 2 major areas that India's clean energy transition could be focusing on, given the variety of constraints that we are experiencing, both nationally as well as geopolitically. Thank you so much, Doug, for joining us. With that, we would conclude the chat. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Enjoy your day.